Well, welcome to the Inspire Life podcast. My name is Michael. I'm your producer and co-host, and today I'm really excited to be interviewing Amie Summers. And Amie, before we started recording, we were just talking. I don't really know much about you. I know that Dr. Mel has worked with you and highly endorses you. So if you want to just start with a basic introduction of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, thanks for having me. So I'm a psychotherapist. I work in private practice, clinical social work in the West Metro. And I work mostly with kids and teens and some young adults and adults, but most of my clients are kids and teens. A lot of them are kids who've been adopted or fostered. And what makes the way I work a little bit unique is that I have a sensory space in my office. And so I work with a lot of kids who have not made great progress in what you might think of as more like traditional play therapy settings. And so we can do a lot of movement and somatic regulation and those kinds of things. So it's a somatic approach, a somatic and a nervous system approach to psychotherapy.
That's fantastic. That's awesome. We know, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual health, it's all interconnected. So, it sounds like you take that kind of multi-lens approach to helping people and caring for people.
Yeah, that's right. I will often talk with, families about how a diagnosis can be helpful for some kids and families, and that the symptoms and, what underlies all of that is the same. It's all nervous system process. And so we can, it's a pretty non-pathologizing approach, which seems to work really well for most of my clients.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right in line with Dr. Mel and myself in both of our practices. And, recognizing that there is a time and place for diagnoses, and there's also, ways to maybe navigate that and recognize that there's power in being able to overcome those types of things as well. You mentioned, the somatic, the body work being an important part of your practice as it relates to the nervous system. Can you tell me a little bit more just about, maybe types of things you're doing with clients, or how that kind of network or the nervous system and the somatic kind of work is interconnected? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And it's funny that network slips in there because the two approaches are really quite similar. The way that Dr. Mel works is through chiropractic, and it's this understanding of the nervous system and the human being as a self-organizing system. And that's the same approach and perspective that I take when I'm working with folks. My clinical training is in organic intelligence, and there is like a complex systems understanding to that. So what we know in complex systems, including humans, is that with the right supportive initial conditions, our systems, our nervous systems, are made to start self-organizing and self-healing. And so I recognize that when, a kiddo walks through my door, that I'm there to offer those initial conditions to help their being start to do the thing it already knows how to do. Like, I'm there to support that process. And all of my interventions and the ways I work with kids is informed by what their nervous system is telling me in a moment. Like, I never go into a session with this idea that I'm the therapist, and so I know the things you need to do to feel better. I can give you some things that might help. And, what we'll see happen then is people work really hard at feeling better, but as soon as they stop doing some of those things, they don't stay feeling better. With a nervous system approach, including network chiropractic, people don't have to keep working really hard to feel better. It's like over time, they stay feeling better without having to work as hard at it.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And, back to what you said about it's really, it sounds like you are a catalyst, you're a partner in their healing journey, right? It's not kind of that, I'm the expert and I'm going to tell you what to do, and this is what's going to work, and this is what's going to happen. It's more or less, allowing your client, your patient, whoever it is, to, tap into their own, as you said, their organic intelligence, their own innate healing rhythms, their own abilities that we are all born with, that is constantly, changing and it's dynamic over time as we grow and age and just navigate life and all the stressors, really tapping into that internal ability to overcome whatever it is through strategic things like, somatic work with the body or tapping more into the nervous system. So I want to touch back on that term. I love that term, organic intelligence. That's something that, chiropractic is basically founded upon this idea that there's, this innate intelligence or life force that goes through all living things and especially humans, and, having freedom from interference in that system is going to allow us to live our most, thriving life. So can you just touch a little more on the organic intelligence piece? Because I love that terminology and that phrase.
Yeah, well, you'll hear in the world of, psychotherapy, like these ideas around clients coming in and they're wounded or they're, there's a brokenness or these things. And the organic intelligence, like perspective and understanding, is that actually we're all whole all the time. Like we have a wholeness in us all of the time. And things happen in life that basically kind of knock us out of sync, like and it's actual biological thing. Like we desync biologically. So we kind of get out of some kind of a rhythm, but our system with the right, supports again, can re-engage with its innate healthy rhythms and its innate healthy ways of being. So when a child comes in who I'm working with, who had like a rough start of life, and maybe they're adopted or they're in a foster family, their nervous system has taken quite a few hits along the way. And so their nervous system has learned that the way to be most likely to survive is to mostly be in a state of survival all the time. Even though in the present moment, if we took a look around, it'd be like, oh, actually, things are fine right now. I'm, sitting in Dr. Mel's office and it's safe, or they're at my office and things are okay. But there's something coming from the inside that's saying, oh no, you need to be on high alert, because in the past they did need to be on high alert. So every way that a child or person shows up in the world, when I'm working with them, or anybody who works in this way understands that it's an adaptation. It was something that was of service at one time, and it's not necessarily needed anymore, and it's making life harder now. And it's not that we want it to stay this way, but we start from this place of knowing that the system learned something over time. It was conditioned in a certain pattern to make survival more likely. And now here we are today, and how do we support the system in the recognition that those survival patterns are no longer needed, because they're not actually responding to what's happening in the here and now.
I love that. And it makes so much sense. I mean, like you said, we're all whole all the time. And we have our lived experiences that often will put us into a certain state. And oftentimes, like you said, that state or flight. The stressors within our environment today versus 50 years ago, I mean, especially with technology and cell phones, it's just through the roof. So instead of trying to just kind of focus on whatever the thing is that your clients, or the parents of your patients want to go through, whatever it is that they want to address and remove that maybe thing that's problematic. It's more like, no, let's accept where they're at, recognize that this is, validate that they're here for a reason, and then find a different road forward per se. You come to a fork in the road, and let's take the one that's going to bring us more towards our destination and the vision that we want to fully embody.
That's right. Yeah, it really changes things when a certain behavior that a parent maybe identifies as, this is problematic for this child and their life and for our family system and at school. When we can look at it first and just say, you know what, this behavior actually makes a lot of sense. We don't want it to stay this way, and neither does this kiddo, but to be able to say to the child, it really makes sense that this is showing up. I can see how this would have been helpful at certain times in your life. And what it means for parents is that I think it evokes really a sense of compassion and of seeing what their child, it truly is so intelligent. the adaptations that are made along the way to allow for getting to the moment that we then find ourselves in. And going back to like the somatic piece of it, a lot of the initial work then really is in helping kids be more present moment oriented, and parents as well, because if the family system and the child system is really kind of in a state of chaos, sort of the first way out of that and the first support in that direction of more regulation and organization and self-healing is just present moment awareness. It is the taking a pause and just recognizing, oh, I'm actually okay right now. There's no imminent threat inside or outside in this moment. And then with the body, the first thing we're doing somatically is reconnecting with the body when it's most likely the child is feeling good inside. So I'm not necessarily, when a kid comes in, asking them to tell me about the hard things that are going on, because then if I were to invite them to notice their body, they're going to go in and it's going to be like, anxiety and fear and all that, fight flight stuff going on. Instead, they're jumping on the trampoline and I might say like, oh, I wonder how that feels for your legs right now. And the first times they're dipping back into their body awareness is, oh yeah, my legs feel pretty good right now. They feel pretty strong. And that's then the first sort of opening an avenue into re-engaging with the somatic experience in a way that's actually very helpful.
It's awesome. And there's so many pieces that you just touched on. I want to just kind of recap. So the first thing that I heard that's so important is back to that empathizing with the child, right? And recognizing that, hey, I know you're going through this right now and it's a challenge and it's something that maybe isn't the most fun. And I see you and I hear you and I feel you in that experience, and we can work together and persist through this and make some change. The second thing that I heard that was really important, I'm trying to keep them straight in my brain right now. I should have taken notes. The next thing that I heard, when it comes to, you had so many good points.
That's what I'm here for. You don't need to.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it was like, it's, the first step is always being able to name what's right about this.
Yes.
This behavior that's problematic, I get it. We want it to be different. What's right about it? Mm-hmm. So starting there. And then present moment awareness.
Yes.
It's like inviting more of that in, more of the time. Mm-hmm. And then the next piece is really orienting and paying a lot of attention to what's already going well, what feels good in your body, what do you enjoy about life, what would you like life to look like? So really kind of orienting in that direction versus an over focus on what's wrong, which I think it's certainly how we're trained in a lot of psychotherapy traditions, is to, a client comes in and the idea of therapy is like they sit down and then you say like, what brings you here? Which is really a question of what's wrong in life. And of course we're meeting clients where they are and we want to be hearing that, but we're sort of, again, like conditioned or habituated to really over focus on what's wrong, which tends to actually just reinforce what's wrong. And that reinforces nervous system disorganization. So we're asking a different question then, or we're at least bringing some balance into the two sides of everything. So yes, there's the what's wrong, what's right, mm-hmm. What feels good, what's going well, what are the amazing things about you that you would want to share with me?
Yeah, and that was the point I was trying to find and recapture was, it's the same with Dr. Mel and I, how we work with our clients, because every time a practice member comes in, she's asking them questions like, what's good today? What feels, mm-hmm. what's going well for you? How, yeah. And same with me, I'm a health and wellness coach, and health and wellness coaching is rooted in positive psychology.
Yeah.
Every session is about finding the things that are working. Now, we're not completely dispelling the things that didn't work, the things that are problematic, because those are important to empathize with my clients, to empathize with your clients, to fully experience those. But there's always positives, right? And something that Dr. Mel says all the time when it comes to present moment and our thoughts and our brain power is thoughts matter and thoughts become matter. So mm-hmm. continuing to reinforce the positive things, like you're saying, right? It's going to, ease their system, put them in more of a parasympathetic state, recognizing that in the present moment in your office or here at Inspire Life, it's a safe and okay place to be vulnerable and be themselves, and focusing on those positive things, the things that are working. And it really comes down to, you mentioned it earlier, pathology versus salutogenesis, right? So pathology is identifying what's bad and then trying to remove it, versus salutogenic model of healthcare, which is what's finding what's good and what's working and building upon that. Right. And, really embodying that salutogenic approach. I mean, at least here at Inspire Life, we've seen tremendous results. And it sounds like you have as well.
Yeah, I have. I remember after I'd been in practice for a couple of years, I had heard this like seasoned social worker, they'd been in the clinical field for like 30 years or something, say something about how, well, you know how it is. It's like a third of clients get better and a third of clients kind of stay the same and a third of clients just end up not continuing on in their work. And that apparently is this sort of like understood thing. And that really surprised me because that's not been my experience at all. It's like, oh, wow, that's, there's much appreciation and gratitude for all of the people who are part of my lineage in the world of social work and who've been in this work for decades. And like, we want to keep doing better and better and better. And I really think that this kind of a systems approach and a systems approach to nervous system work is the next thing. And there is a really lovely, like, positive psychology underpinning to organic intelligence as well. And it feels to me like the next sort of evolution in interpersonal, in psychotherapy. But we also have lots of people in the OI community who do, there are midwives, there are body workers, there are physicians, there are professors and teachers, people from all kinds of, who are doing all kinds of heartful work out in the world, have received this learning and been able to apply it, because you can apply systems theory to anything, from individual all the way to, societal. So people are using it in all kinds of really cool ways in creating organization in all these different kinds of systems, including individual systems.
Systems thinking and strategizing through systems thinking is really, really key. And, back to your point on the organic intelligence and just the way, a big part of that, and what I'm hearing you say is, with a lot of past experience within your field and even within chiropractic and other fields, there's kind of this acceptance that, we're going to do our best. Some people will see results, some won't. Some will actually maybe even get worse, even though it's kind of against the ethics of all of all three of our professions. But creating a new reality in that and saying, you know what, we actually have the tools that we need. We're continuing to, educate ourselves as practitioners and to educate our clients and to just, fully show up for them. We can create a new reality and turn that into, 60 or 70 or 80 or 90 or even 100% of people that we work with are actually going to see good results, and not just letting the old status quo be the normal, creating a new reality. Yeah,
that's right. And I think part of it too is when people are really passionate and excited about what they're doing, like, you want to keep learning, you want to keep growing the field and evolving the field and like being the next, there's this like idea of the good ancestor, like the next one now in this line that eventually will be in this lineage of people who supported movement in a certain direction and on a certain trajectory. And, I can see that definitely in Dr. Mel and her work, and it sounds like that's true for you as well. And for sure, I can see that this will be lifelong work and engagement and enjoyment for me as well.
Absolutely. And, just from our conversation today and what I've heard from Dr. Mel, I can tell and know that you're passionate about what you do. And like we said, finding new realities and new space for growth for all parties involved in your work and in ours. So, Amie, thank you so much for being on the Inspire Life podcast. We're just about at our time. I do want to ask, though, for all of our listeners, I guess I have two more questions. This is the one I always ask every guest, so I'm not sure if you've listened before. The last question is what is the one thing, maybe it's a piece of information or whatever it is, what is the one thing you would leave our listeners with today?
think the one thing I would leave your listeners with.
Not to put you on the spot or
I
anything.
yeah. Well, I guess it is this this piece around just our innate knowing. And I think that there are times in our lives where we will really have a sense of that. And so the thing I'd be curious about for your listeners is the times they've recognized that like inner knowing, that almost like home with a capital H part in them that is guiding them as they move through life, and knowing that that is always there, that is always with them, and it is always wanting the best for them and wishing them well. And that is in all of us. So I think that that's what I would want to leave people with.
I love that innate knowing and that internal intelligence is always, it's looking out for us. And maybe sometimes it feels kind of weird to really trust and dive into that and allow it to be, but there's a lot of growth and a lot of potential within doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. And then, so last question, how can our listeners get in touch with you, whether if they want to work with you, if they just want to see more of your work and what you're up to, if they can check out your social media if you have it, what are the best ways for our listeners to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so I have a website which is amie.summers.therapy, and I don't know if you guys do show notes, but I can send over links too if that's easier for folks.
Yes, I do details in all the episodes, so definitely send over some links.
Yeah, so I'll send over my website, and then probably the easiest and most accessible way to work with me right now, I'm facilitating a family. It's through Organic Intelligence, and it's a family community, and so it's a way that what I offer people in like one-to-one parent consultations, I can bring it to a larger group, and it makes it more affordable and accessible for more people. And we actually have people in the community from all over the world. So it's really a fun way of spending time together. It's parents, it's people who work with parents and kids. So lots of different folks. So people could email me if that interests them. I'll also send a link if they wanted to just check that out online as well. So that's probably the best way to be in touch right now.
For sure. And, I love what you said about, it's kind of international, it's a group. And I know a lot at this time, especially, there's a lot of people who are really seeking that connection with others. So
yep, that's right.
I'll put all the info in the details of the episode. Amie, thank you so much. This is a awesome conversation. And I learned more, but that's one of my favorite parts about doing this podcast is I learn something every time too. So thank you for your time today. Yes. And to all of our listeners, until next time, keep inspiring. Thank you.
Hey there, did you find value in today's episode? We sure hope so. And make sure you like, comment, and subscribe.
Also, hop on over to Facebook and join the Inspired Living community. There, Dr. Mel and I share health and wellness tips to help you live your most inspired and thriving life.
And as always, keep inspiring.